Bleh, bleh, bleh. Welcome to Disparate Worlds, where an irresistible force meets an immovable object. I'm Mox, and this is Sechari, and we are comparing and contrasting the worlds of Sid Meier's Pirates and Sea of Thieves.
I don't know what I'm supposed to say to that. Sid Meier's Pirates and Sea of Thieves. Are we? Have we fallen so far, Mr. Mox?
We have. Well, you told me we had to invite somebody for this discussion, so I found a pirate for us, I think.
Right, yes.
He goes by the name of RedBeard, so I assume he pillages and plunders and such, so he'll have to tell us that, though.
I mean, I do have I have a hat somewhere, a pirate hat somewhere, but I forgot to bring
Excellent.
Yar.
Yar is right.
I suppose we could start with that if we wanted to, but how about we save our poor folks?
Yes. We are comparing and contrasting worlds of Ashes of Creation and Pantheon Rise of the Fallen.
Yes,
as always.
or at least we're trying to. Right.
Right.
Yeah. So, I'm not going to belabor it. We have a guest with us this episode. RedBeardFlynn, with his beautifully red beard, of course, who joins us as a MMORPG and RPG space content creator. We'll let you kind of embellish on that here in a moment, right? I did some looking and saw that he's available on YouTube at RedBeardFlynn and on Twitter at RedBeardFlynn as well. But of course, he's got other things going on, so we'll let him mention what those are. What would you like to bring up? Anything about the projects that you do, the things that you cover?
Sure. So I have a YouTube channel and covering RPGs and MMORPGs and recently survival games as well, like Nightingale. And I also write books. I have 2 books published and a writing tips channel as well. So you can find me at RedBeardFlynn pretty much anywhere. No one else has taken that name yet. So.
Right. I made it sound like we don't know you at all, but actually we do. Mm-hmm. We do a recent live video covering your content?
We did, yes.
Right. We're like, okay, we better have him on to show everybody that we're still friends.
Well, we've actually
we didn't ruin our relationship.
Sechari, so.
Yes. Oh, yes.
The new world of all things, which actually fits well with this. It
does. Actually, it really is.
With our topic du jour.
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll intro that in a minute. So I thought I'd ask before we go on with anything else. Obviously, you've been content creating in MMOs, right? Overall, covered different things. You have done some recent videos on Ashes and Creation and Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, right? Including what you mentioned to us, and I've actually seen them both. The concerns of both. I thought I'd bring this up just as a separate thing in addition to the notes we have, just to let you say what you'd said to us before, that both of them had reactions. How did they go?
Yes, so they both had very strong reactions, very passionate reactions on both sides. It's interesting because those 2 videos are my most disliked videos, but there was valid reasons for why, but it's nice to see some of the reasoning coming from the different camps on both games. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I felt that if I was going to be talking about one game, which the first video was a concerns video on Ashes of Creation, because honestly I had more concerns about Ashes of Creation from a standpoint of like the game design, and so I thought, well, I need to be fair and cover Pantheon in the same way.
That's reasonable.
How'd that go over? Like a truck?
Yes.
Because you get like people in the community they're not just fans, they're like zealots, right? And it's a religion to them how much they like their games. So even though none of these games are out and it's all just conjecture, right? You're going to get some people that are violent defenders of their
the Pantheon Concerns video is the only video I have been able to track the metrics and see an unsubscribe during the video.
Really?
Wow.
I'm done with you.
Yep.
Get out of my feed. That's hilarious.
That's kind of silly. Like, if you're being honest about the game and not just trashing it to trash it like some other content creators do, then your feedback is seen. And I know that from our interactions with the guys at VR, I know that they pay attention to the community and the content creators. So they're going to see that, and they're going to take that into account. I mean, they may not change anything, but they're at least going to look at it. And also remember, a dislike is still engagement. The algorithm doesn't give two poops about whether it's a like or a dislike. It's engagement.
Yes, we know that, right? Like the dislikes in our videos are numerous.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's pertinent to point out that by doing a concerns video on either game, it's not something done to, like you were saying, trash the game. It's done something because I want these games to succeed, both of them to succeed, and I believe that there is a possibility that both will succeed. If I didn't think they would succeed, I would be telling people to run away from the games, which
you wouldn't be doing any content on them.
Yeah,
like that would be silly. So totally makes sense.
Well, also you're not a shill. You know what I'm saying? Like you're doing the same thing we're trying to do, where you're trying to have respectful, well thought out conversation, right? You're in there having the conversation with the community, and there's things you're concerned about, and those deserve to be aired as well, right? So
yeah, I mean, I'm not a shill until the check's clear, at least. And no checks have come in yet.
Right, until they're advertising
where
for...
Where do we apply to get these checks?
Raid Shadow Legends or some such, right?
You can't say that without getting $2, I think. So
we'll be watching for the check. Let's see if that works.
So what are we going to talk about today, Sechari?
Yeah, okay, so we've got a topic lined up. We thought we'd have you on, Red, to discuss one thing that's come kind of rattling around in my head for a little while, and that is the idea of post-launch die-offs, right? So just to explain this real quick, everybody knows that an MMO goes live and it's just nuts to begin with. They're having to launch new servers, make room for people, and nobody can play with their friends. They find out, you know, hey, we've done New World recently, right? We've lived this. And it's the drama involved in getting everybody in the same server, right? And then you're done, right? And then there is maybe a month, 2 months where there is just it begins to dip, and then it's sudden, right? There's a large dip, and I think it's not specific to any one MMO. It's just the way things are. Right, that's my idea. Now, I'd like to do a little bit of thinking about why that is, right? I mean, obviously, anybody who leaves an MMO has got their reason for doing so, and you could probably make a pie chart out of it, right, and come up with a few buckets that people would fit as to what those reasons might be. But I thought it may be a fun exercise for us to, given what we know about Pantheon: Rise of the Fallen and Ashes of Creation at this point in the game, give it a wonder, right? Do we expect that these ones will have a long, thing? Will there be a die-off right after launch? What does a timeline look like? When will that die-off happen? Because it's going to happen to both of these games.
Right.
Given what we know, what would those reasons be? What do you think would the reason be? And maybe if you care to, touch on how a studio might try to retain some of that audience as right after launch. So that's going to be the idea for the chat tonight. Hopefully we'll survive this.
Did you say that this is an exercise? I'm not prepared for anything like that.
Immovable objects don't exercise too
exactly.
Well. Right. We'll see what we can do with this.
All right, let's dig in.
All right, so I don't know even where to start. Maybe what we could do just to begin this thing is just mention two articles.
Well, hang on, before you do that.
Yes.
I want predictions that we can go back and look, like what percentage after, what do you think, 3 months for each game, for Pantheon and for Ashes, what percentage will they drop in population?
Well,
uncomfortable
this will be
silence.
Fun to revisit down the
No
road.
kidding, yeah.
I mean,
Redbeard's here. Let's give him the spotlight. Go for it.
Sure. And
that'll buy me time to think of my answer.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that there's, at least to me, a clear, reasoning behind this. But I think that with a game like Ashes of Creation, which is, I imagine, going to launch to a larger audience, it will have a much larger decline. There's a lot of similarities with some of the things that New World was offering, and so I think you're going to have a lot of people that are eager and interested to go check it out, may decide that it's not for them, and then leave. And so perhaps 70% drop, and that's actually that's better than what happened to New World and better than what happened to Lost Ark. So That would be
90 plus, yeah. No kidding.
And that's, I mean, within like a couple months of that. I think with Pantheon, you're probably going to have a smaller launch. I think you can look at a game like Embers Adrift recently and see how it's kind of had a, you know, people were interested in the game, but it was a much smaller launch, so it's had smaller, you know, attrition. So I think you'll have people able to kind of stick around a little bit more, but plenty, I mean, I imagine at least 50% drop, because I just think that's just the way the market is now. You know, you have people that
absolutely,
they just want to go test it out, see what it's like, and if they like it or don't like it, and then leave.
Right. Okay, so you're saying within about 2 months for Ashes of Creation, you mentioned, right? That's the guess there. What do you, if there is any such dip on the Pantheon side, what would you give it?
About 50% in about 2 to 3 months. And the thing is, like, that may be, and that's, and we'll kind of probably get into this later, but that may be like the goal is that 50%. That 100% that you get on launch day is probably unsustainable. It's probably not something that the game would even be able to handle. So, I mean, I don't think New World was set up to handle almost 1 million players, you know?
Yeah, no, we know that to be fact.
Yeah. 2,000 per server I've never seen a model like that. It just made it weird to me.
Yeah.
Having to spin up so many servers. Goodness. So, yeah, I mean, okay, so I actually think that's reasonable. I think within 3 months, probably for sure, you're dealing. The game switches gears, right? Like it transitions from a short term burst of happy, you know, let's try this out, into what is probably going to be more of a long term audience that's going to play this thing all the way to the end. You know, they're going to stick around in game, you know, depending on how much stuff is out there, I think. And then 2 to 3 months, I think, is about right. Percentage wise, I think I agree with you that Pantheon is not going to experience as much of a percentage, because I think if Pantheon delivers what its audience is hoping for, which is something very EverQuest like, I think it's going to be okay, right? Because that's an audience that has gotten into it for that reason. They've gotten what they want. They'll play it, right? They'll stick around and play it. And I think that's going to be, the people are going to stick around and play that. I think you've got the gamut, right? You've got everyone and their dog wanting to play Ashes. And so I think a greater percentage of die-off after launch is probably about right.
I almost
70%.
Yeah,
I'll have to think about that.
I almost feel like I'm going low on the percentage with Ashes, just because it is aiming for this huge market and it has so much more buzz around it now, that, and I think a lot of it's just going to come down to how things are marketed and, you know, what people are, what if people are getting what they expect from the game or not.
Right. The so-called quote-unquote WoW killer. If that's your expectation, I think we're going to have an interesting time.
Can fall through
right.
I agree with your assessment of Pantheon, that it will be less people will leave because they're getting what they want, provided there's something to do when those people get to the end game. Either of these games come out with no end game like SWTOR did, and it will be, you know, huge launch or a big launch, whichever you want to call it, and then nothing. Like it'll die off like New World. So I think I don't think Ashes is going to lose quite as many though. I think I'm going to go 60% with Ashes and 40% for Pantheon. Again, just for that simple, assuming they're delivering on everything that each game promises.
Okay. And it's interesting to me as well, given that both of these MMOs are, their model for is open development, right? Like allowing people to see the game coming along, showcasing a lot of it. It's shaping a lot of community expectations along the way, right? So by the time you launch, the people that at least have been following it so far kind of have an idea as to what they're getting into, and maybe they'll stick around more as a result of as compared to the people that, okay, there's a new game out, let me go try it. Okay, this is not what I was hoping for. Right, you have to kind of get your expectations together the day of launch or in beta, right, or whenever you first try it out. So I don't know.
Yeah,
agreed.
I think that when you get to a launch, you're gonna have plenty of people that have no idea what the game is. They're like, they may see a YouTube video, they may see an advertisement for it, and think, oh, this looks cool, and then go try it. So I think that there's, like, with those of us, like us, all of us here, and anyone watching this, are following these games, and I think we might be, we're not the majority of people that are going to be playing these games. The people following development of these games is going to be a smaller group than the ones that will actually try it day one or within the first month, I think.
True. Yeah, okay, so there's a percentage of that day one population, right? That will be the ones that have followed it. And those ones, I bet you the retention will be higher among those.
Oh, yeah.
Than among the people that just jump in. I wonder what those percentages look like, though, right? Like, is it really just like going to be significant, or is it like 5% of the people actually followed before, throughout the, development, and then, in that case, I don't think it would be. I don't think it would be meaningful. It would be negligible, right? That, okay, well, yeah, you retain 5%, but that doesn't really make that much of a difference in the grand scheme of die-off, right?
I wonder how much the what's the word I'm looking for? Well, you know how like Ashes is doing a zero cost and subscription only model, but Pantheon is probably doing a box cost and subscription. I wonder how much that affects whether or not people stick around. Like, if you spend $60 for a game, do you stick around a little bit longer than you would for a game that was free?
New World cost $40 and had no subscription, and Lost Ark was free, and they both had very similar steep declines.
Right.
So,
okay. Well, I'd say, you know what I think it would affect more than even the numbers is the attitudes, right? Because if I've shelled out a bunch of money, and it's a stinker, I've wasted my money. There's been a cost involved, and I'm madder about that than if I tried a free-to-play game and I decided it wasn't for me.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So you're going to get people that will quit, but will quit in anger, and those are the people that'll quit and will talk about it, and will foment some kind of a, they'll get on the Reddits, right, or whatever, and share those opinions. And I don't know if they win people over to that thought, but they'll certainly find other people that are like-minded, and it'll get a, something going, I think.
Yep. All right. Sorry about that. Sorry about that sidetrack there.
No. It's good because I tend to bury the lead very badly sometimes. So. All right. So yeah, we did as I was looking through things, find a couple of articles I thought I'd throw out there. We'll have the links to these in our description, so go check those out. But the first one of them is Perfect 10 Reasons Why I Quit Your MMORPG. This is by Justin Olivetti on Massively OP, so check that one out. And then also, Why Do Players Leave MMOs? That's by Matthew Miller on MMORPG.com. So just for further homework, if anybody cares to.
Yeah, I liked liked the first one, the Perfect 10 article. It was just bite-sized little, snippets of reasons people leave a game. My favorite was because you kicked me out.
Is that what happens to you every time, Moxie?
Not every time, but I did get that 1 week ban in SWTOR, so it does happen.
Yeah, it does happen, yeah. So, yeah, there's a plethora of reasons, right? And this is what we kind of touched on a minute ago, right? That there's reasons people do that. Let me ask you, let's approach this way, because I could read the list off, and I imagine here in a second we probably will go through these, right? But if any of these would pertain more than the others to you, right? Which would it be? Like, if you got into an MMO, what would be the reason you'd stop playing it within 2 months?
Because I'm forced to PvP and get ganked every time I turn around. Oh wait, I'm sorry. I'm describing Ashes of Creation, aren't I?
Yeah. So you shouldn't even try it, because we know you're gonna get ganked like a sheep out there.
Yeah, they're gonna see my name and be like, "That's that useless Pantheon creator."
Like, it's Mox. Let's get him. You're gonna get ganked just because people recognize
There's
you.
There's gonna be a website set up to like track me.
Where's Mox?
Wait, I'm not that important.
He logged in. Everybody's waiting around there when you log in. It'd be great. And RedBeard's like, please don't look at me. I don't want them to associate me with this, because it'll happen to him too.
So
hey, I played Ultima Online. I'm good. I I played Ultima Online before it split into Tremel and Felucia. I'm aware of what happens.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Don't trust anybody.
PvP issues aside, I would say that the biggest reason I would stop, it's two things. I could not continue playing. What's that game that Jess plays? Sechari.
ESO.
Yes, I can't play ESO because I can't stand the interface. Like the interface,
interesting. That's not on this list.
And uninteresting content are probably two things that would drive me away from a game.
Okay, but I think it depends on your values, right? As a player, like for me, I'm a big explorer. If I played a game and found myself on rails all the time, I'd be out in no time, right? Yeah. I think that. I love open world for that reason. And you give me open world, I'm happy. Right, so that would matter. And I think every individual has their things that they care about that they would like to see. And that matters too, right?
But I think that you say that, but if you think about it, SWTOR was on rails. Each planet had,
it was.
Go to this base, then you move to this base, and so there was a railness to it, but there was exploration and there was a world to it. So.
I can handle theme park if the map allows me to explore, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. I can go off the Redbeard. What about you? Like, if there's anything that would kill it for you,
the thing that kills it most for me is going to be monetization, and I say that with
it's not on the list either. Let's put it on the list.
Yeah, because Lost Ark to me lost me very quickly, and it wasn't necessarily the gameplay. It wasn't anything like that. It was learning about how it was monetized later in the game. And how it would be incentivized and things like that. Whereas New World, I gave them a lot more time, and I have gone back to try New World. Even like went and tried the new player experience again. Mm-hmm. I have not touched Lost Ark since learning about how they're monetizing. Monetization, I think, is the biggest thing for me because if it's done in a way that is going to make me not be able to enjoy the game at the same level as someone who pays, then that's not the game for me. And
but this is not pay to win though, right? We're talking about pay to convenience.
Yeah.
What are we talking about necessarily?
Essentially, pay to make it like pay to convenience, but to the nth level. Like where it is actually impacting your gameplay. So let's say if you pay, you have a battle pass and you pay $30 a month and you get a 50% experience bonus from that, just throwing that out there. That's still kind of pay to convenience. It's not necessarily pay to win because it's not something that is giving you a distinct strength advantage over someone, but it is
because you still have to log in and play during the month to take advantage of that,
right? But it's still
a lot harder on you for sure.
Exactly, and it creates this divide between the people that are paying and the people that are not. Yeah, and so that's the kind of monetization where it's optional and that kind of all that stuff. Which to me, Lost Ark, with how they did their enhancement systems and things like that, it was just no. But then the secondary reason would just basically be things that are the kind of things that I have to do all the time. So Mox, you mentioned Elder Scrolls Online. I really want to like Elder Scrolls Online. I have tried to play that game a lot. I love the story, I love the world, I love the characters, everything about it. I really dislike the combat. The combat is something that
interesting. Okay.
I can't get into it despite trying multiple times. Like, it's very similar to Guild Wars 2, and I like Guild Wars 2 combat, but there's just something about it that's off. So mechanics
or the lack of the sometimes it's a lack of the trinity. You know what I'm saying? You don't quite know what your role is, and I know that some games play with breaking the mold, and so you don't quite know how I fit into a group, but
right. And so it's first it's monetization followed by mechanics that just are not my cup of tea.
And you, sir?
For me, I think it's going to be large. I mean, hands down, it's going to be exploration. I think if even if these other things aren't quite right, if I've got a world to run around in, that's okay. I don't know. I'm trying to think. My most recent experience, I've done Star Wars: Old Republic that we played for 10 years, right, Mox? And then we had New World more recently. New World, I think my primary reason for stopping that game was because I just couldn't keep up. I couldn't keep up with the Joneses, right? They like, if you weren't the bleeding edge of getting stuff done, right? You blaze the trail, they would come up with with a tweak to the game that would make it harder on you to get there. So you're further and further behind. You're months now behind the people that. So if you're not like the first people there, like you just never. And I'm not that sweaty, right? I'm getting off work and trying to spend a couple hours a night, playing these things. So. I want to be there and I want to be able to do something, but I'm also not looking for kind of like a, hey, pay to win. If I could just chip in some dollars because I'm working instead, right? And that keeps me up with everybody else. I don't feel like that's right either. Yeah. So that was New World. I think with SWTOR, things. It was just a general atrophy of the game, right? I think, I played that one. There was something in that game that made me stick around for 10 years, right? Yeah. I stuck around. So there was something I liked. I agree it was definitely theme park. I would have preferred it wasn't theme park. I came in as a Star Wars Galaxies refugee, right? And it was I know, right? Everybody's got stuff to say about that, right? Yeah, but it was completely sandbox, and I love sandbox, and that was what I was hoping for. I had to change my expectations getting into a theme park, but there was enough exploration to where I could go off and I could find other quests. I could find bosses to kill, right? So there was enough in it to make me go, okay, I can level going the theme park. And I do like story, but I prefer personally, if it's going to be sandbox, the story is in the quests, where you start a quest and you experience that quest line story, and then you go find something else to do, right? You're just in this world.
Yeah, and then SWTOR just, their expansions got smaller and smaller and smaller. Yeah, so it was.
You can tell really EA was just choking the life out of,
We're giving you a new planet, but it really was just a landing zone with the quest hub.
Yeah, right. Yeah, a dailies area, right, or something like that. And compared to the launch of the game, where you could get lost for hours,
right?
Literally. You end up in some very bad spots.
You could kind of say that the health of the game itself could also be a push factor. I mean, not every game is going to be able to last. Like MMOs are meant to last, but even 10 years, that's a very long time for an MMO.
Yeah.
I mean, the longest running MMOs, I think at this point, are what is Meridian. I don't even know if Meridian 59 is still running, but Ultima Online is still running, and EverQuest. So you're talking about like 20, 25-ish years for like the longest.
That's incredible.
MMOs.
Honestly, yeah.
But then there's a lot that die before 10 years too.
Right. And it's the badly developed games, right?
What we're focusing on here is the immediate atrophy, not the long-term atrophy. Which
I think the long-term atrophy, right? If you've stuck around in a game for a long time, you are one of the few that they manage to retain.
Right.
I think that bears a part of the conversation too, right? Like, what was it that they did to retain me that made me not subject to that set of die-off rules? Right.
But sometimes it's not necessarily what they did. Sometimes it's what you do. Like you and I were content creators in SWTOR. That probably added a couple years onto our tenure there, because we were involved in something else that was tangentially part of the game.
Yeah, you can't cover it if you don't play it, kind of a thing, right?
Exactly. Okay. So, not all the time it's the game. Sometimes it's just yourself, your culture. Where are your friends playing? If our group of friends wasn't playing SWTOR as long as they were, I probably wouldn't have hung around either. So there's that.
You talked about long-term and short-term, so atrophy and health of the game, but even in some recent games, you can, like, the writing is on the wall within the first couple of months of the game. A good example of that would be Bless Online and Bless Unleashed. Those games, they dropped within a month, like their population dropped, and then all the signals you were getting were kind of giving up on this game. Like, that's, so if the company,
the studio is giving up on it, or the people,
the studio, and same with Crowfall. Like the games that Legends of Aria, 2 crowdfunding game, Legends of Aria and Crowfall, when the studio is signaling that they don't care about the game's success after launch, that can very quickly push players away, because if an MMO is going to require your time, and if you don't think it's there for the next 5 years, are you going to play, or are you just going to give up within a month, because why keep
There's
going?
No future in it. Yeah, totally. I think the studios that are one-trick ponies, and in case VR and Intrepid are both that way, right? They got one game that they're supporting, it's kind of make or break. If the game doesn't float, the company doesn't float. So they've got a vested interest in making it work compared to some of these other ones where they have 2 or 3 different games, right? They can maybe let one go. So
is this where I bring up Apocalypse as a second game, or is that too controversial?
Apocalypse, yeah, no kidding, right? That was a game all on its own. Yeah.
So in light of that, if you have a bad launch, like New World did, and like didn't Destiny had a really bad launch, didn't it, initially? But both of those games recovered to some degree. Destiny, if I recall, had almost a second launch, and New World, really what they did in November, you could call that a second launch as well. They recovered some of their people, but have they retained those people that they brought back? I know I played for a little bit, but I've since left again because it just didn't have it.
Well, I think it's so, like, with the example of New World, I think New World is showing, at least Amazon Game Studios is showing, that they care enough about the game to continue iterating and developing it. The problem is that when it launched, it needed a lot more than what it launched with, and what they've given is still not enough. But like the new player experience that they gave, that is like, honestly, I played through that new player experience. It's fantastic. It's much
you're talking about the
better.
Revamped one, the level 1 to 30 revamp. Yeah.
But then you hit a problem, right? What's after that? So there's still more needed.
Back on the rails again. Yeah.
So there's still more needed, and if they continue to do that, then I think they'll continue to please the players that are there and also welcome in new players. But I mean, I don't think they're ever going to hit back to close to 1 million players, but maybe they don't need that.
It might help them in the long run for the next MMO they launch. Yeah. Hopefully they've learned lessons and can apply what they've learned so that the next time around they'll be good. Amazon can afford that. I don't think either VR or Intrepid can afford to have a failure like that and survive.
Right.
Yeah. I think there's another aspect of this as well, is that every new MMO that comes out is another division in the same pie. You know what I'm saying? With the pieces of the pie are getting smaller because there's more out there competing for my attention. I've got 30 games, and then the 31st one, now I've got 31 games I'm thinking about, right? Like,
but is that true? I mean, they're game, like, you have 30 games, but you're not currently playing all 30 games.
No, I'm not. But that's what I'm saying. Is like everybody's so they all want to win me as a player, right? That's the goal of any one of these studios, right? Is to have a larger player base. But they're competing, and the MMO, I would say the MMORPG market is a fairly well-defined market. People are playing it. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes they get out of MMOs, they go play something else, first-person shooter, whatever. I'd say they leave the market there. But as long as you're making MMOs, you're in there competing with all the other people that are making and are running MMOs. I don't see that market growing, where there's a lot of, like, a new generation of players suddenly shows up. You know what I'm saying? It's fairly solid. So, I mean, they're all competing against each other.
But I think people would have said that, in 2003. Because you had a lot of games out in 2003 and the market was growing. I mean, it had grown, but it was kind of hitting its peak at about what I think EverQuest was hitting around 500,000 players at a peak, which was incredible. When you think about games before that had
launch of WoW around there. Yeah.
And they had struggled to hit around 100,000. So 500K was incredible. And then you had World of Warcraft launch in 2004, which blew that out of the water. And EverQuest 2 didn't even hit the half of its predecessors. Total number. Right. So I think and then that's continued to grow where you have multiple games now that have millions of copies sold. Now, in the grand scheme of things, it's still a very small market in the gaming market. Elden Ring sold 17 million copies in a year. Guild Wars 2 has sold 10 million since it launched. So it's small.
Valheim, right? All these these other games, totally.
But I think there's thinking about it as in that the broadness of the market is not going to grow with more games coming to it. I don't know that I don't know if there's untapped potential for players. Like, if you think about and to give Ashes of Creation some benefit here for what they're trying to do, you have Mortal Online 2, you have Ultima Online. There's not a lot of games that are trying to hit that open world PvP market. Albion Online. And so
yeah, there's a niche within MMOs, so it's kind of angle on it.
And players that there's not a lot of players that will cross over between those. There are some like myself, but there's not a ton that will. When Star Wars: The Old Republic launched, it was a story first MMO, and since then you got things like Final Fantasy 14, Guild Wars 2 that also put story first. And so I think there's very different subgroups within the genre.
Strains. Yeah, I agree. But what I think the effect of that has is that I think most players tend to pick their game, right? I'm a WoW player and I play WoW, and I play WoW every day, right? And then some new game comes out and I go, oh, let me go give that a shot. I'll play that, I'll blast to the end game. I've seen what all there is to see here. I go back to WoW.
Yep.
I'll wait for the expansion to come out, right? And I think maybe that accounts for some of this post-launch die-off as well. And I'd probably say that's part of that content locustry, right? Like, but it is and it's not, right? There's the people that come here just to see what's going on, play the game, and then get back out, and then they wait around with their characters for whatever content is new. So
yeah, well, and to that point, and to kind of support your idea of the pie, what was the biggest part of Final Fantasy 14 having really good numbers, or Guild Wars 2 or Lord of the Rings Online? Yes, they all did good things over a time period, and so they were succeeding. But what was the other big thing happening? World of Warcraft was flailing. It was pushing players away, and those players were trying to find somewhere new. A lot of them landed in Final Fantasy 14, and
so the market is
by
favorable,
content creators.
Right? Yeah,
but then,
because they're sick of it too, and leading the push. Yeah, absolutely.
And so they pushed away, and a lot of players went to those games and had something new to play for a while.
Right. Yeah.
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 So, given everything we've kind of chatted about here, what do you guys think Ashes or Pantheon can do, or maybe is incorporating to help either stave off this drop off, or to maybe win players back in the event that that there is a drop off? Like, what can they do down the road to fix or to regain that subscription?
I think this is a lot harder in the Ashes of Creation realm than it is in the Pantheon realm, right? Ashes of Creation, I guarantee you there are a lot of people that their expectation is Ashes of Creation is going to be the game. It's the savior of MMOs. And they're going to be sorely disappointed because humans made it, right? And there's gonna be a fragmentation, right? There's gonna be people who play like religious zealots, and that's great, wonderful, But they're gonna be going. There is a bunch of people that'll stop playing the game for a plethora of different reasons, and that's harder to win over because there's so much fragmentation in that group that you lose, as opposed to something like Pantheon, where people get into it looking for EverQuest. Well, for them, it's 85% similar to EverQuest plus some new ideas. They like it, they stick around. Not many people leave, right? And the people that leave, it's going to be things like, well, I just didn't have the time because work got, complicated. You know what I'm saying?
Or I want a PvP game and they're not offering it.
Yes, something like that. You know what I'm saying? And that's I think they're more definitive, right? So if they lose 10% of the audience because they don't have any PvP offerings, there's a pretty defined fix for that, right?
Add PvP servers. Yeah.
I don't know, Red, what do you think? It's a tough question.
I mean, I think so. I've kind of come to this after, watching what's happened with MMOs recently, is just that they just need to be aware of what's going to happen and try and insulate and prepare as well as they possibly can. I kind of agree with you on Ashes of Creation having a bigger problem here, but I think it's for a little bit of a different reason. A lot of the creation of Ashes of Creation is players, right? So player content is a big part of it. One of the games that failed because players went to it and left was Warhammer Online. It needed players to be a game. Without players, it was essentially nothing. The PvE didn't really work because you had public quests that needed people to be there. All the PvP was all about open world PvP. And you had scenarios, but
no community means
and so
how do you fix that, right?
Well, and that's the thing. That's having some way to insulate and being ready, being very ready. One of the good things that I think New World did do is they were very quick to offer free server transfers. They were quick to merge servers and unmerge servers and do things like that. It didn't. I think that kept them above water a little bit.
I tend to disagree. I think they burned a lot of goodwill by taking too long to make those decisions. By taking too long to open up new servers, and like there was days when they were like, we're working on a plan, and not
because they actually
plan.
didn't have it ready. They did not have server merges ready, and they had to, but at least they were aware that it was a white hot problem, right? They had to get that fixed.
But I think this is also where my experience comes from EverQuest, where instead of days or weeks, it was months before they started to even talk about, and they wouldn't even talk about it. I mean, there was dead servers in EverQuest with progression servers because of how those work for months or even years. There are still
and
dead
by then the damage
servers.
is done.
They just they were so they didn't even want to talk about it. Like, it was something where they wouldn't communicate. They wouldn't acknowledge the problem. So at the very least, New World acknowledged the problem and tried to solve it within a couple of months. And it needs to be done faster than that. And that's why I'm saying, like, the next game that comes out needs to be better prepared than New World. If New World is better prepared than EverQuest, well, then it just needs to keep going. Because
learn from these other people, right? Like, see what they've done, and then get ahead of some of those, because they are inevitable. They will happen with your game. You are not insulated from those problems.
Have a good plan for what to do if population is lower than you expect, and what to do if it's higher than expect, and what to do if it's at the extremes of either one of those. Because you've been working on these games in both cases. They'll probably end up taking around 10 years or more. I think Ashes is at year 6 or something like that.
Mox, we should get his over and under on the expected launch dates as well while we're at it. But it's an ongoing debate.
But basically, you've been putting so much time into these that there's a lot. They have contingency plans of how to do it, and think about the server structures specifically. How many players can your network handle, and how many players can your systems handle? How do you have enough room for people to group in Pantheon? Or what do you do if there's no one on a server, like, turning nodes over on Ashes? Have those plans in place so that you're not caught.
What happens if your server crashes when you do your 250 versus 250 PvP? Like, be ready for that. You're right. One thing you mentioned earlier, Sechari, was community, and I think that community is going to be the one thing that maybe, as RedBeard mentioned, insulates Pantheon from a severe drop-off, and that is I think they're going to have a much more tight-knit community, people that chat with each other, that already are chatting with each other and hanging out and doing stuff. And are at a minimum online friends. And I think that will be more prevalent in or at least more to the forefront on the Pantheon side than it is on the Ashes side. Of course, on the Ashes side, you're going to have people that are friends and grouping and things like that. But I don't think that if you're having a problem with a quest in Pantheon, you'll get a better answer from the community than you would if you asked somebody in the Ashes world. Just based on what the content creators are like over on that side, I get that feeling that it's going to be a more abrasive community.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I mean, definitely. I mean, it's hands down. The Pantheon community is warmer and more accepting, right? Like that's a good environment to make friends, to
and will help retain
involved.
People. I want to log in tomorrow to hang out with the people I grouped with yesterday.
I don't know if that will help as much with retention as much as define the community, right? So it'll define who the player base is, and I think that's where the two games are differing the most. Is you
don't think that if you have a bad experience grouping that versus a good experience grouping that is due to the differences in the community, that you'll be more likely to log in than not? But
there's also plenty of players that don't care about that too. There's players that just want to go, and they either want to go and solo in an MMO or they want to go and PvP in an MMO. There's very diverse player base that have different expectations, and I think the expectations for Pantheon are more well defined, and not by necessarily any fault of the developers, but just by how the hype has gone. So players kind of have an expectation for what they're going to be getting with Pantheon, a group focused game. And so the players that are going there want to group with you. Whereas the expectations for Ashes of Creation are a little more broad, which could allow them to have a larger group. But I think that's why we keep going back to they're probably going to have a bigger launch and they're probably going to have a bigger drop. Because I think that expectation, there's not that as tight knit a community around it, because they haven't been, certain what type of game they're getting. Because there's a lot of newer things with Ashes of Creation, I think.
Yeah. And they're casting a very broad net, right? So you're going to get players, you're going to get RPG players, you're going to get PvPers, you're going to get the single folks, the people who like to group, you're going to get the traders that really want to go and play with that trade system and moving resources around the economy. They come from every which direction, and as a result are more diverse, and diversity doesn't necessarily mean that you're all on the same page. Right now, if you manage to get into the game and magically there are guilds, right? Like I'm talking about old school guild. I'm not talking about a guild of union of players. Like if the crafters become a community within this, and the PvPers become a community, right? And there's the defenders of caravans become a community, and you can get into whichever one interests you. Then I think it's going to stick around, right? But that has to emerge, and I don't know that I have that much hope for that. I would love to see it though, but we'll see.
But I think it's also going to just be able to attract people just with, it's in Unreal Engine 5 now. It looks good. It looks interesting. The combat looks fun. So it's going to be able to attract people in that way too. The players that are not necessarily, but then those players may be, or probably are less likely to stick around.
Right.
Is that there's a stickiness for Ashes of Creation potentially than Pantheon.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so too, and I think that's fair. But now, so the question is really going to be whether we were right? Because we're guessing 70% dial for Ashes, 60% Mox. You say? Yep. I think I agree with 70%.
Has our discussion adjusted your thoughts about those numbers at all?
Have I? Are you talking to me?
Yeah, just an open question.
Are you talking to me? No, in all honesty, I actually did not think about this question on purpose and came to this completely blank slate. I was stupid as I could be as I turned on this camera.
Situation normal.
Yeah, because for me, what happens is as I'm talking about things, ideas, situation normal. What? Sorry, that did not escape me. But things emerge to me, right? Like I begin to, as I'm comparing notes with other people, I begin to formulate an opinion. I work better that way than trying to think through it on my own and coming up with an opinion, and then I have to think a little bit more about whether it's going to be about some of the percentages of die-off. I don't think Ashes of Creation, for instance, is going to be as drastic as New World in terms of percentage of die-off. But now why? Right, that's the question. Is let me weigh and figure out why do I not think it's going to be that much, and then that's when you get into the weeds of trying to figure it out from there. So.
I think,
and this is why we end up with hour-long episodes, because I ask a simple yes or no question, and he goes on for 10 minutes.
Yes, I'm very verbose. In case anybody has not already figured that out. Yeah.
All right, so actually something we didn't discuss in our show note prep, but I do want to announce we have an upcoming interview with the folks at VR. We'll be doing that in the next couple weeks, and we will be releasing that a day early on our Patreon. So join our Patreon if you want a quick sneak peek of that. And some of the things that we discussed today actually might come up a little bit in that topic. We're going to discuss the social aspects of Pantheon Rise of Fallen with Joppa. So we're looking forward to that. So check us out on our Patreon at patreon.com/DisparateWorlds if you want to get a early preview of that interview. Also check us out on Facebook.com/DisparateWorlds, on Twitter at DisparateWorlds, and our website DisparateWorlds.org. And in addition to that, on our website and in the description below is a link to our Discord. Please join us there for raucous discussions.
Raucous discussions?
Yes.
Is that what those are?
They are. Redbeard, please remind everybody where they can find you in all your entities and on the social media world.
Okay, yeah, so I have a MMORPG and survival game channel here on YouTube, RedBeardFlynn at YouTube. And I also have a writing tips channel. So if you're interested in writing at all, books and things like that, I have a writing channel here as well called Just Keep Writing. That goes hand in hand with I have 2 published books out as well. But cool. Yeah, that's anywhere RedBeardFlynn is, Twitter, TikTok. TikTok has a lot of the shorts and things I do on YouTube already over there, and some, terrible, ridiculous things as well. But yeah,
aren't you a little too old to be on TikTok, sir?
Yeah, I'm way too old for TikTok.
You have to, though. That's the thing. It's like Mox, what we're dealing with here is a content creator who's way better at it than we are. That's why he's on TikTok.
Yeah, we talk about doing short form content for like 2 months, but have we published a short yet?
No, because we suck.
I just don't sleep. And I just throw stuff against the wall and see what sticks.
Oh, there you go. Oh. No sleep. That's how you do it. Apparently, we sleep too much, Mox.
Apparently, yes.
Yeah, RedBeardFlynn, we definitely want to say thank you for joining us.
Definitely.
It's been a very cool conversation, and I appreciate content creators are kind of like at the same ilk as we are, right? Where you're trying to figure this thing out too, and actually have good conversation about it. So it makes for a good show. So we definitely
thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Well, in case anybody's wondering, that's going to be it for us here. I don't know, at 50 or so minutes into this thing. Oh my goodness. Definitely thank you for watching all. We appreciate your patience with us as always. Yes, there you go. Thank you. Drop a comment. Don't forget to do the like and subscribe thing. All those YouTube things that help us keep our channel afloat, assuming we're even floating at all. Notification bell also. So all of that said, thank you all. Take care of yourselves, and remember always to be immovable in your principles and irresistible in your passion.